Welcome to episode 20 of the Empowering Ability Podcast.
Welcome to the Empowering Ability Podcast, where we get you and your loved ones impacted by disability the information needed to live a full and meaningful life. Now here's your host, Eric Gall.
Welcome to the Empowering Ability Podcast. This is your host, Eric Gall. And for all of our listeners, I just want to remind you that we are currently still recording our mini-series on housing for people with a disability. And if that's a topic that interests you, make sure to go over to empoweringability.org and grab the free download on creating your home. It's a great workbook that'll help you start to think about what your vision is for home and how to start to implement that and start the conversation. So go on over to empoweringability.org and grab that for you and your family. So today we're taking a break from the mini-series on housing for people with a disability to talk with David Roche. And the topic that we're going to talk about is finding your inner George Clooney. And David describes himself as an inspirational humorist. And think of inspirational in terms of helping others to find inspiration within inside of themselves, not using his disability or his facial difference, I should say, to inspire others and for others to be inspired by the things that he does because of his difference, but rather to help individuals look inside and to examine their own self-worth and to build their own inner beauty and self-confidence. So really cool chat today with David. And this is a podcast that I recommend for everybody, not just families and individuals with disabilities. So here's David. Enjoy. Hey, David. Welcome to the Empowering Ability Podcast. Thanks for creating the space to join me today.
Glad to be here, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, David, I saw you speak at Partners for Planning the Art of Belonging, and you did a TED-style talk there. And one of the things that that really struck me, especially when you opened with your talk, you mentioned that you always ask people to ask about your face. And to kind of get that out there and to talk about it. So the listeners right now aren't able to see you, so they might not exactly know what I'm talking about. Could you maybe we could start there, and if you could share maybe why you asked that question?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I do that because I'm an audience lover. And being a public speaker and performer, I have an interest in giving the audience what they want. And in this situation, I'm standing in front of people, many of whom have never seen me before, and I have a facial difference. I was born with what is called a vascular malformation on the left side of my face and neck, swollen veins that are now they're engorged, they're twisted, they're purplish, and they're still there, and has grown and grown over the years. As a baby, I had surgery. My lower lip was cut off. I had other facial surgeries and kind of cut and paste kind of work. And I had heavy radiation therapy that made the bottom part of my face stop growing, and I lost my teeth. So here's what I'm used to in life. When I meet someone for the first time, for example, say a cashier at a Tim Hortons, they are absorbed in the visual. And so I'll say, okay, I want a plain old-fashioned donut and a double-double. And they'll go off and get me a cup of tea and no donut. Because they're so absorbed in the visual that they cannot actually hear what I am saying. So I've learned to deal with that as soon as possible. Then there's the factor of people being nervous and embarrassed. Are they going to say something wrong? So I want to clear that out of the way. And people are curious. That's the question. What happened to your face? Now, young kids will often ask that. People who are drunk will often ask that. And I'm giving the people what they want, and I'm getting it out of the way. Here's what happened. Okay, we're done. Now let's move on. And it works. It's really effective. And at a deeper level, there are 4 levels of fear. This is my opinion. INHO. Oh no, INAO in my arrogant opinion. There are 4 levels of fear that deformed face can bring up, because the face is where the human persona is located. So there's a fear of, I'm going to say something impolite or lewd. There's a fear of, like, oh my God, I'm going to catch a disease. There's a fear of, oh my God, this guy's like Freddy Krueger. He's going to hurt me. And there's the 4th and the worst fear is the fear that I myself am disfigured. This guy reminds me that there is something disfigured about me. So there's like deep channels that are flowing there when you encounter someone who looks different. And that obviously applies to lots of different kinds of people. People with obvious visible disabilities, people with brown skin. I'm talking about the Canadian world, Indigenous people. They're subject to that kind of reaction and judgment. So that's going deep on the answer to that question. But right on the face of it, it's making the audience comfortable and clearing out space for myself. And I reveal myself as being willing to be vulnerable and authentic.
Right.
So it's all good.
Yeah, and it sounds like you don't just do that with audiences, you do that in everyday life.
One of the things that I have learned from having a facial difference is that, kind of implicitly what I already said is everybody feels disfigured. Also, I've learned that the first 3 minutes doesn't count. I used to think that people were judging me. Some people do. But mainly people are just getting used to me. So if you just ignore that period of time when people are getting used to you and give them time to take a second look, then things are a little better. So that's kind of what's going on there.
Yeah, and just reflecting on that, the first 3 minutes, people are just getting used to you. When I reflect on my experiences, my first 3 minutes with anybody, it's just getting used to them. So it's not any different.
Yeah.
Right. It's getting to know somebody a little bit.
That's the way I look at it. Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. So, David, just going back, you mentioned in your own opinion, there was kind of those four fears, and it sounded like the first 3 fears were fear held by the other person, and the 4th fear was fear held by you.
No.
Okay.
The 4th fear is also held by the other person.
Okay.
I think that people, especially people with facial difference, we carry the weight of that fear for people. And it took me years as a performer to realize this. That when people come up and share with me things like they'd say, Oh, I felt so terrible when I was in seventh grade, uh, and explain something that was well. Actually, I tell a story in my show. A woman who came up to me when I was first performing after the show and told me how she had suffered because of her freckles, and I wanted to punch her. Uh, I thought, who are you? But then, that was the beginning of realizing that everybody carries a feeling inside themselves that there's something wrong with them. And often in our Western culture, that has to do with appearance, and there obviously women have to deal with that more than men do, but everybody has to deal with it in some way. It's also the fact that I think, and I'm getting pretty philosophical here, that it's inculcated in people culturally and has been for millennia. For example, the concept of original sin in Christianity, that human beings are evil from the moment of conception, or in the East, it's karma. Oh, it's something you did in a prior lifetime. That's why you fucked up, that kind of thing. And so I believe that we all carry a little place inside ourselves where that fear and doubt um, resides. And if you don't deal with that, what can range from self-loathing to self-doubt, then you are prey for the predators. Financial, sexual, political, warmongering, on and on, cosmetics, plastic surgeons. They're not all predators, but so that's one of the reasons why I believe that people with disabilities are now no longer victims, no longer survivors, but starting to emerge, as Jean Vanier says, as leaders. Because I would say I have learned to deal with that feeling inside myself because it was displayed on my face. I could not avoid it. So that I have learned some life lessons that you really need to know, that everybody needs to know, because, as I say, if you don't deal with that feeling of a lack of self-worth, that's where the predators are going to get you.
And I want to dive into those lessons that you've learned. But before we do that, I want to give you credit for being the first guest to drop the F-bomb on the podcast. I love it.
It's so well placed.
It was good. So, yeah, the floodgates are open now, right? So, if we dive into that feeling of self-worth and the lessons that you've learned along your journey, what really stands out for you, David, that you'd like to share with the listeners?
There's a way that is the question that I feel it's my calling to try to answer. I say my face is a gift because I had to find my duty inside. So kids ask, and I often work with school children, how do you do that? That's great that your face is a gift, but you had to find your inner duty. How did that happen? If I could put that in a bottle, oh boy.
You'd be a millionaire.
There
or a billionaire.
Elements to how. So I'm writing my second book, and I'm trying to answer that question. So if I feel like, we know how to do it, how to find our inner beauty, because those of us who are disabled or visible disabilities, uh, have the inside track of that sort of thing. It's so complex and complicated. Like, I feel like I got a lot from my family. I lucked out. I was the firstborn. I was born during wartime. I was, like the little blessing in the family. And so I had an advantage there. But there's just so many other things. You have to learn to take risks. You learn. I don't know. It's a very difficult question to answer, and I'm really trying to. So it boils down to things like, as I think about this, I think, okay, how do I look in the mirror? When I look in the mirror, so this becomes advice for someone who's concerned about their appearance or trying to deal with that inner feeling of a lack of self-worth. I say, when you look in the mirror, that's not you, okay? That's how other people see you, okay? So when you look in the mirror, do this. Don't go looking for all your little flaws and things that are wrong with you. Look in your eyes and love yourself and smile and say good morning and say how wonderful you are. Like that, okay? Because if you're looking in the mirror and you're thinking that that's you, you're wrong. Because the real you is, as Jean Vanier says, it's love and community. The real you comes out with other people. And it comes out in the form of love. That's a little arcane, I think. But, this is the best way I know how to talk about this at this point.
Yeah. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your thoughts on that question. It's definitely a big question, David. And I love your message on when you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you see yourself. That's, doesn't have to be how you see yourself. That's how other people are going to see you. But to look in your eyes and to tell yourself that you love yourself and that you are, confident and you have self-worth is important.
Yeah, I say you have to find your inner George Clooney. Gloria's voice given to the Lord. I just want to say, hey, looking good this morning. Just get into how sexy you are.
Right. I love that. Yeah, now all I can think about is my inner George Clooney. So I'm.
I learned probably that the young people just have a vague idea of who George Clooney is, because it's moved on to, younger people. It's moved on to Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. Matthew McConaughey, but he might be getting a little too old these days.
Yeah. My wife and I do a program called Love at Second Sight about appearance and accessibility and disability and diversity. And talking to kids, this was actually a few years ago, but we do a question and answer session, and in that I made a reference to Jack Benny. It's like, as demonstrating a point, it's like, it's like Jack Benny. And the kids are, yeah? Who? So I learned not to make cultural references, no, it's not Mariah Carey. Sometimes people don't even know who Mariah Carey is.
Yeah.
So time goes by.
The importance of knowing your audience, right?
Oh, yes.
You mentioned the work that you and your wife do. Would you be able to share a little bit about that, David? There might be people listening that are interested.
The story starts in Canada. I was invited in 1998 to keynote at the family conference of the Nader and Miller Syndrome Association. I convinced Marlena to come with me. We were living in San Francisco at the time. By that time, She was not interested in hearing what I had to say on stage or at the mic. But I thought, well, we'll get a vacation in Vancouver. I had never been there before. So we show up, we go to the dinner, and Nader and Miller syndromes can manifest at birth in very severe facial differences, missing a mandible, missing eyelids, foster limbs, etc. So here's all these kids running around with all these differences, and they're totally loved, and they're totally shining and beautiful, and Marlena falls in love with Cyrus, who's 5. I wake up the next morning at 5 a.m., going to do the keynote, and I realize I want Marlena to be part of it. I wake her up, and she agrees because she's vulnerable. It's not something she's ever done. She's totally nervous, but she's motivated by love. So I start the keynote, and then I introduce her. She does not even know what she's going to say. She tells the story of meeting me for the first time when she heard my voice before she saw my face. And it was in a situation where we were both volunteering to do massage in a hospital. And we were doing the training to learn the protocols, and that she was in a hospital room on one side of the curtain getting a foot massage. She had not met anybody else. She hears my voice. I sound like I'm 6'3" with curly black hair and bronze skin and tight jeans, and in her mind I was wearing cowboy boots. So she wants to meet me because my voice sounds good, and I'm listening to my partner that I'm doing the massage on the other side of the curtain.
She sees the George Clooney that you see in the mirror.
Yeah, that's right. She's George Clooney. It's time to switch partners. She opens the curtain. She sees my face. She freaks out. It's like, ah, and she runs away. So then she follows her heart back to me, and then we become friends, and then we become lovers, and then we get married, and this. But it's the story of love at second sight, and so we do this with and then I tell my story of what life was like for me when I was 12 years old, and we give the kids what they like. Funny, physical, authentic. Do not tell them what to do, just tell stories and let them figure it out, which they're quite capable of. We've made this into a film now, by the way.
What's the film called?
Love at Second Sight. Okay. It's loveatsecondsight.org is on the web.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it into the schools. Yeah, it started there, and then we just kept on doing it. We've done it like at a couple of hundred schools. And it's hard to say what is my favorite part of what I do, but the moment that I love the most is I tell the story of my mother used to tell me all the time, David, you're so smart. You could be anything you want to be, honey. And I got that reassurance, which I found out lots of people don't get that reassurance. And so I learned that the audience loves to hear that simple story. So I started saying it to the audience, like this is my mother saying it, honey. And then I realized with the kids, I'll say it directly to 2 or 3 kids. I'll go right up to them from about 2.5 feet away, and they're sitting there in the classroom, and I'll say, honey, you are so smart. You could be anything you want to be. And I go right into their eyes, and they just go, whoa. They just light up. Oh, my God. And I'm giving them what I got in that moment. Honey, you're so smart. And last year I got an email back from a little girl little girl, a 12-year-old that I had done that with, and she wrote, "When you looked me in the eyes and told me that I was smart and beautiful, I believed you, and now I know that I am. I know that I am all the time." And I thought, wow, what a great email to get. But the interesting thing was I did not tell her she was beautiful. I just told her she was smart. So she got it, though. She got that she was beautiful.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah. So that's what I love. I love to do. And if I have like a target audience, I would say it's that 12-year-old girl. Because, the kids, they're right, vibrating between, childhood and puberty, and they could go either way, and they do. And I remember when my daughter, Amy, was 11, she came home from school and said, "Dad, is my butt too big?" Oh, no, it started. So
Right.
there you go.
Yeah, right at that age range of 11, 12, we're still our belief system is still malleable, right? We're still trying to figure out the rules that we need to live by.
Yes, and the rules are very important. They apply to backpacks, they apply to shoes, they apply to where you live, they apply to the car that your parents drive, on and on. So yeah.
Yeah, and they also apply to how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I teach storytelling, and I do that with people with all kinds of disabilities, including developmental disabilities. And I did not find my creativity until I was 44 years old and got on stage for the first time. As I say, I had to quit drinking, and I had to fall in love and be loved and know that I was loved, and that changed things for me. So I'm sort of like developmentally delayed in that respect. And so I love to encourage people when they're young or at any point in their lives to tell their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I just did that. I was at that, 6 days ago, I was at the Children's Craniofacial Association retreat in Reston, Virginia. I did a keynote and I taught storytelling, and there were 600 people there. Oh God, I got 4 standing ovations in one day. Holy sh! That was a good day. There was a whole lot of love. The storytelling. Who was there was lots and lots of children and adults with craniofacial disorders. And it was, wow, it was great to hear people tell their stories in all ways, and to see that, to have corroboration to that idea that these are people that can be leaders, that are leaders, and so much resilience and strength. So many little George Clooneys running around.
You make a fantastic point that everybody has a story. Even if we don't think we have a story, everybody has a story. And
Yeah.
right, and to be able to think about what your story is, to be able to communicate to that to other people is important. It helps you understand, I guess, who you are, who you have been, and helps you think about where you want to go moving forward too.
Absolutely, I think it's a really important thing to tell your story. When I first got on stage, I would make really, stupid jokes about my face, like, oh, it's a Ben and Jerry's flavor. What would you call it? And I didn't know it took me years to realize that my story is a universal story, and people just want me to be myself in keynoting and on stage, because my story is the same as theirs, because everybody has to deal with what I have dealt with in one way or the other. So it means the more that I am authentic and let myself be myself and get into what seems like a very individual story, the more individual it is, the more it explodes into a universal. So that's why I love teaching stories, and I agree it's incredibly important for people to, and one of the things I say when I'm doing a storytelling workshop is I say, your first job is not to tell a story, your first job is to listen, okay? And you're not just listening to other people, you tell your story and you have to listen to yourself. And what do you have to say?
Yeah, it sounds like that you're following your purpose in what you're doing.
It's interesting, yes, I agree. I feel like I am following my purpose, and it's great to work with my wife, with Marlena, to have a partner in doing this. A lot of times I feel confused about that. I feel like I don't know. I react. I try not to react. I try to respond. I'm doing my second book, which is entitled "Standing at the Back Door of Happiness," which tries indicating like, well, the way to be happy is a little different than you thought. I'm going to be in a feature film called Happy Face, which is going to be shot in Montreal in this fall. Book, and we have to figure out how. Hopefully, we have a distributor for the film. We'll see how that goes.
Fantastic. A question that comes to mind is: there's a lot of brothers, sisters, parents, other supporters that listen to the podcast. So if they've got that, 12-year-old son or daughter, brother or sister, or person that they're supporting, and they have that visible, they have a visible disability, as supporters, what can we do to help those people that have a visible disability to gain that self-confidence and to really either learn or bolster their inner beauty?
Well, that's a large question again, and
I'm good at that, aren't I?
Yeah, there's plenty of places to go with answering a question like that. But I tried to think, what did I get from my 6 siblings? So I was the oldest, so I didn't have that experience from somebody older. But I got a lot of love from my siblings, which in my parents, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's the same as anybody else. If you have a constant friend, I don't know the answer to that. I just say my feeling is, if you are asking yourself that question as a sibling of someone with a visible disability, then you are already there, is what I say. So just the fact that you want to know the answer to that question means that in some way you know the answer. Because otherwise you wouldn't be asking it. And so that means you'll be encountering different situations in life, and you have to puzzle your way through it. But with a good heart, you will puzzle your way through it. And and you also mess up and do stupid things because that's who you are. You have a part of you that does stupid things. And then the lesson is how you recover from that and deal with the fact that you do stupid things. And your sibling with the visible disability does stupid things too. So,
right.
No, I don't. Part of this, I grew up in the Catholic Church, which had many, many good things about it. I was nurtured. I was told that I was a child of God. I was told that who I was a soul, something inside me. I didn't know what that was exactly, but it was inside me, and it was of value. It was great. But then there's also the element of Catholicism. Actually, when I was 13, I wanted to go to study to be a Catholic priest, but I was interviewed by the Holy Cross Fathers at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana in the States, and they told me that I was too ugly to be a priest, and that the parishioners would not be able to have any respect for me because of my unfortunate appearance. So that was a real shock, because the way I grew up, I was told that when a priest speaks, that's the word of God. So I heard God telling me that I was a freak and a monster. So there's, the Catholic Church is complicated. So, but my point here is that it's hard for me to deal with rules and authority a lot. Okay, so I try not to give rules myself. But when I wrote my first book, the editor said, "No, you have to have a takeaway at the end of each chapter. It has to be like a little moral to your story." And I said, "No, I don't want it." Moral. Well, you have to, because that's what they want.
Yeah. So for our listeners, David, could you just share the name of your book and just at a high level what the book is about in case people are interested in picking that up? And I'll link to it in the notes of the podcast too.
Sure. It's the title is The Church of 80% Sincerity. That's also the title of what was my signature show. And it's based on an editor at Penguin Books found out about me, checked out my website, and asked me if I would write a book based on my show. So I did. And it's got a lot of stories in it. It's not like the story of my life, but it's got funny story. It's a great book. And it's got a great foreword by Annie Lamott, who's like one of the best writers ever. Church of 80% Sincerity. You know where you can get it. I don't need to tell you.
Cool. I'm gonna pick that up for myself, David. I'm excited to read into that.
Too.
Before, when we were just talking back and forth and setting up the podcast, we both shared our admiration for Jean Vanier, and you mentioned his name a little bit earlier on the podcast as well. And there's a great quote that you shared with me. I'd love it if you would like to share that with the audience.
I'd be happy to. Jean Vanier. Here it is. There is a revolution going on. We are beginning to realize that every human being is important. We are beginning to see that every human being is beautiful. At the heart of this revolution are not the powerful, the wealthy, or intelligent. It is people with disabilities who are showing us what is important. Love, community, and the freedom to be ourselves. The end. I love that.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So just one last question to wrap up the podcast here for you, David. If you had a billboard that the whole world could see, what would you put on that billboard?
I'm not trained in advertising and marketing.
What's a message you want to share with the world?
I hesitate and the kind of billboard that it's not static. It's
rotating.
No, it's like a video. It's
okay.
And so that would be me with just looking right out and getting full eye contact and saying, "Honey, you are so smart. You can be anything you want to be. Really, honey. You are so smart." That will do it.
I love that.
So, when it comes right down to it, that's all I have. That's all I have. I can give my theories and, I don't know. They're all good, but it's like in the quote, it's love. Love is all it is. Love is all it is. Love is all it is. All you need is love, love.
I love it, David. And I think that's a good note to wrap up our chat today. So super grateful that you created some space to chat with me today and to share your story and share some of the lessons that you've learned along the way and important messages. So appreciate your time, and I'll be saying hi to George Clooney in the morning.
You're good.
Right on.
Take care.
Okay, thank you. Big thank you to David Roche for coming on the podcast today. It was a pleasure interviewing him and really exploring his life journey and the lessons that he's learned and accumulated along the way to find his own inner beauty and his own sense of self-worth that comes with that. And hopefully for you, there's a little nugget of something that you took away for you that either you can go work on or that you can take with you to share with other people to help you or the people around you to find their inner beauty and to at least start to think about that and reflect on it. And next time you look in the mirror, make sure to say hi to your inner George Clooney or that beautiful inner sexy self that you have. And if housing is something that you're working on, feel free to go to the website and get the free download on creating your home. So there's this great workbook that's going to help guide you through creating your vision and starting to implement your vision for what your home looks like. So go on over to the website. It's empoweringability.org. And I think you'll get a lot of value out of that. I'd like to thank all of our listeners that have left us a review on iTunes. Your reviews help me understand what I'm doing well, what I can improve on the podcast, what you want to hear. So it's great feedback that you're providing, so please continue to do so. Also, by leaving a 5-star review, it helps other people find the podcast. So thanks so much for those reviews. Next week on the podcast, our guest is Dale Reardon from Queensland, Australia. So first time that we're going around to the other side of the world to bring on a guest. So super excited about that. And Dale shares his story with disability and having a disability onset for him at the age of 17. So I think you're going to enjoy his story. And Dale also tells us about the online platform that he's building to help people with disabilities to build social connections and share stories and lived experiences to support each other. And it's called My Disability Matters. MyDisabilityMatters.club is the website. So go ahead and check that out now and tune in next week for our chat about that. We also talk about the NDIS in Australia, which is the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So if you're interested in learning about that as well, we have a short chat about that. So thanks so much for listening again today, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. Visit us at empoweringability.org for more podcasts and resources to help you and your loved ones impacted by disability live a full and meaningful life.